Kia ora koutou. Nau mai, haere mai, ki tēnei kaupapa. Ko Helen Lloyd tuku ingoa. Welcome everybody to this webinar, this Te Pūtiyaki Manatanga Association of Educators Beyond the Classroom webinar. Today we have got Naketa Ikihele speaking to us about setting worthy goals, and it's the 30th webinar in our series. Before I introduce Naketa, we'll start with the karakia. Whakatake hau ki te uru, whakatake hau ki te tonga, kia mākina kina ki uta, kia mātaratara ki tai, e hi aki ana te atakura, he tio, he huka, he hauhu, ti hei mauri ora. So I'm really delighted to be able to welcome Naketa today. She's an absolute powerhouse of wonderful aroha knowledge. She's a really amazing, spirited, incredibly knowledgeable person. And I was really fortunate to be able to take part in one of her workshops recently. So I really am very sure that you're going to enjoy this webinar and learn a lot from her. So she's of Rarotongan and Ngāpuhi descent, and she is currently working on she has a International Coaching Federation Associate Certificate in Coaching, and her current Master of Education is in leadership with a focus on listening as a leadership skill. And she believes that curiosity is a vital characteristic for all leaders, and she prides herself in supporting leaders and moving on from where they are to where they want to be to lead their best lives. So that's what we've got in store for us today, everybody. And yeah, I'll hand over to you, Naketa. Welcome.
Wow, no pressure there, Helen, no pressure to live up to the introduction. I'll just take a moment to share my slides and then get into the learning. No mai, haere mai, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm going to kick off. Well, thank you so much, Helen, for introducing me. I'm just going to do a quick mihi to you. I acknowledge that everybody's so busy and there's so many weeks to Christmas and that time is just running fast. I just want to acknowledge you for taking the time out to look at worthy goals today. So before I start though, tēnā koutou katoa, kia orana, e te aroa maata o te atua. So a big warm hello to you all. I te taha o tōku pāpā, no Ngāpuhi tōku iwi, I te taha o tōku mama, no Rarotonga Cook Islands aho. So my mom is from Rarotonga in the Cook Islands and my dad is from Kaikoe and Ngāpuhi Nui Tonu. And so, you know, often I just share a little bit about who I am and my journey to being in front of you right here, right now. And I have a little bit of experience in education, both in New Zealand, Aotearoa, and across the world in Saudi Arabia. But I've come to realize in all of the work I've done and all of the jobs I've had and all of the people I've served is that I just really like helping people and I love listening to their stories. And so as Helen mentioned, my current study is I'm looking at listening as a leadership skill from a Cook Island perspective. And mainly because of all the coaching skills out there, listening was the one I struggled with the most. So I thought, what better way to level up in a skill than dedicate 3 years to writing about it. And I'm nearly at the end of that study, thank goodness. I can't wait to give birth to that baby and say goodbye to it for a little bit, but I am incredibly privileged to be here talking to you about setting worthy goals. And so you might be wondering what the heck is a worthy goal, and I take this work actually, and I take this work from Michael Bungay Stanier, who is actually a guy that has made coaching a lot more accessible for people. So my background is in coaching. I've been coaching for nearly 8 years. I have lots of credentials that make me a coach, but what really appeals to me about Michael Bungay Stanier, or MBS for short, is that he's just made, he's written a number of books and done a number of talks that really elevate coaching as a mindset, that really encourage people to embrace a coaching mindset and have coaching-like conversations with anyone and everyone. And so I am honored and proud of the work he's done, because, I mean, he's Australian, but he lives in Canada, that he's making it more accessible, and that he's helping people have better conversations, and that he's helping people be better listeners, and helping people be more curious. And being curious is what my organization, Kia Mahira, is all about. And so a lot of the work I'm sharing is from his work, kind of adapted to our context. So I put that out there just to let you know, after this, you are more than welcome to go and have a look at his books. But I also, on my website, I've read all of his books, and I tend to be a bit of a book junkie. So on my website, you'll see that I have read some books, and I put up my favorite quotes. And I do this for a number of reasons. One is I like reading, and I like sharing the love of reading, but also it's an opportunity for you to have a look at the quotes, see if they resonate with you, and then go buy the book if it suits what you're after. Also just makes it a little bit easier to access in terms of time and all of that. So these are my favorite quotes from his book. One of them I'll be sharing later, but those are there on my website for you to download, use however you please. So as we get into the work of setting worthy goals, I just will let you know, I will be inviting you to chuck a few things in the chat box. I will encourage you, if you have questions or comments, just chuck them in the chat box as we go, and we'll make it a bit of a reciprocal webinar. And I do encourage you to apply the learning as much as you can in 45 minutes, apply the learning for yourself to pick up later. And so I will encourage you to write in the chat box any thoughts that are arising for you, any ideas, any curiosities, and any questions. So let's get into it. And I guess I wanna so you will have heard of SMART goals. You will have heard of you may have heard of 3 wishes and a star. You may have heard of lots of different other ways of goal setting. And I by no means am saying this is the only way. This is the only way you should do goal setting from now, or set goals from now. But I can speak from experience in that it really, the process has really helped me tackle something that has been living in me for decades. A desire that has been living in me for decades, and having the process of Michael Bungay Stanier in his book, actually, How to Begin, has really given me the why. Why has it been living in there? Why is it still festering in there? Why haven't I done it yet? You know, if it's been so important to me for so long, why haven't I done it yet? And so I guess this is a great quote to kind of highlight the journey we're about to take in this webinar. The quote by Alvin Toffler: "The illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn." And I hands down say I had to unlearn some habits. I had to relearn what goal setting or goals meant for me, and I had to learn a new process, unwire some things, unwire some hardwired bad habits, and really look at why is this important to me. And so I'm going to walk you through that process. I invite you to chuck any questions in as we go. But I you know, in my work as a coach, I often hear, oh, I just need to give myself permission to think about me. You know, I just need to give myself permission to unlearn stuff. And so this is my invitation to you. You're all invited to unlearn some stuff, to unlearn some of the patterns and behaviors that are holding you back from reaching some of those goals that are still sitting there, and they've been sitting there for a while. And so what does setting a worthy goal start with? And while while Michael Bungay Stanier's book doesn't speak to reo, I do encourage you to really reflect on ko waikoe, who are you? And you know, that embraces the idea of identity. Who am I? And who do I want to show up in the world as? And so I'll talk about that in a little bit, but I will bring in, you may have already heard of the Japanese concept of ikigai, which is looking at things that you love, things that you're good at, what you can be paid for, and what the world needs. And this is very much the framework. Well, I think it segues nicely into Michael Bungay Stanier of a worthy goal. Is like, actually take a moment to think about, what am I good at? What do I love doing? What is the stuff that brings you energy? And what is the stuff that depletes you? And to do that, you just need to give yourself permission to think about that. We are just so busy doing the do, and we often forget to take a beat to think about, actually, what am I good at? What does bring me energy and what depletes me? And so, for example, I love teaching. Teaching is, I fell into teaching actually. I was 17 years old and I was a cleaner in an early childhood center. And it wasn't long before the director switched roles with me. She ended up cleaning and I ended up playing with the kids. I love teaching. It depletes me though. Like, I get tired. It's really high energy, so much going on. I turn up better as a facilitator and a coach. But it's taken me many, many years. I've been in education 25 plus years to figure that out, because I just was doing the do. I was just doing it because that's what I should do, because that's how you need to make money, and so I encourage you to take a moment after this webinar to think about, what am I good at? What do I love doing? What does the world need that only I can offer it? And what can I get paid to do that? What can I get paid for? And so the question originally was, how do you want to show up in the world? How do you want to show up in the world? And, you know, this isn't a quick answer question. This is the question that we will probably wrestle with, percolate, ruminate for the rest of our lives. But to give yourself permission to think about, how do I want to show up in the world? And so to get there, sometimes we just need permission to dream. And so I'm going to invite you to dream for a little bit. I've already got my little notes ready. I prepared some dreams earlier, but I'm going to invite you for 2 minutes to reflect, write things that you can dream of. And so I do this activity a lot, and I do it for myself. So what really stuns me is things, I keep a log, because we do this in another workshop that I facilitate. I keep a log of my dreams, and I've realized my dreams are now becoming goals, and my goals are becoming actions, and my actions are being ticked off. But you need permission to dream first, to that unlimited dreaming, to even think about what is at the core of what you want to be doing and how you want to turn up in the world. So I'm going to invite you, I'm going to start talking just for 2 minutes. I'm going to start talking for 2 minutes. I'm going to play a bit of music, and I'm going to encourage you, if I may, to just write down your dreams to yourself. And then I'll invite you to share just one of those dreams with the group. If you only share what you're comfortable with. So if my little YouTube, 2 minutes. Thanks, everybody. If you could just chuck in your one dream into the chat. So, because what often happens is you see somebody's dream and you're like, that's cool, I want that one too. So as my colleague says, it's not stealing, it's called market research. So please share your goal in the group chat so others can be inspired by your dreaming. And so setting a worthy goal, right? That's what we're here to do. Where do we start? Well, first it starts with dreaming, and then it starts with focusing. So finding your focus is really about honing in on your worthy goal and giving it the space to surface. So you'll see my hands kind of do this whole, there's been stuff that I have just not given myself permission to dream about, made it in the too hard basket. And so I do this a lot when I'm talking about worthy goals, because it's been in my heart, it's been in my dreams, I just never took the time to articulate it. And so I will, when we look at finding your focus, Michael Bungay Stanier talks about it has to be thrilling, important, and daunting. And so you're like, wait, what? Thrilling. So moving away from SMART goals, a worthy goal has a different feel to it. And let me explain those three ingredients a little bit more. So thrilling is the actual definition of thrilling is it causes excitement and pleasure. It's exhilarating. So those are all great words that remind us what thrilling means. And it is generally, if we look at the Ikigai concept, it is about alignment with your values, your beliefs, your purpose. It's something that really lights you up. And the question that we ask to help people come to the thrilling part is, how exciting is this for you? And we ask people to measure that on a 1 to 7, and I'll demonstrate that for you in a little bit. So thrilling, and then we have daunting. So daunting is actually about, that the word daunting is like taking a deep breath, going, that gasping, like, can I really do this? It's a little bit intimidating, it's out of your comfort zone. And a question we ask to measure the daunting is, how scared are you? Or how hard does this feel for you? And then we have important, and everything's important in today's society. Everything's urgent and important. Important in this context is about giving more to the world than you take. It's about, it's bigger than self-satisfaction or self-gratification. And so questions we might ask was, how will this impact your legacy? And so when we look at thrilling, important, and daunting as a three-legged stool, yes, we can have goals that are just thrilling and just important. Or we can, but then they'd be too comfortable. And we can have goals that are just thrilling and daunting, but then they'd be too self-centered. Or we can have goals that are important and daunting, but then it will feel obligated, like you'd feel obligated. And so in the work of Michael MBS, he talks about thrilling, important, and daunting are the 3 key ingredients for a worthy goal. And so you're probably wondering, okay, now what? But I just want to allude you to the fact that most worthy goals are either a project, they're based around, so a project might be, I want to create an online course, which by the way, was a worthy goal. So in preparation for this presentation, I went back to a worthy goal I set myself at the beginning of the year, I think in April, it was in April. And I set a worthy goal of creating an online course about listening. And that was in April. And I said by November 2022, and I launched it in September. So something that is thrilling, daunting, and important, there's just this inner urgency that you create on your own self. Nobody's holding you accountable, it's just you want to get it done. So the process does work. The people goals are usually based around like relationships or of service to others. And so you might see goals that are to show up as a better ancestor, to be a good ancestor. And then patterns, like what are the patterns? You want to disrupt some patterns. So for me, I need to stop wagging the gym. I haven't made it a worthy goal because it's just not that important to me. But if it was a worthy goal, I would be very intent on disrupting the patterns of why do you keep wagging the gym? And so I realized that it's just that goal is just the gym one is just not thrilling enough for me. I love the gym, but I keep wagging. So there's a pattern that needs to be disrupted for that to be a worthy goal. Okay, so when we look at a worthy goal, you know, we often think, okay, we have to write a goal and that's it. We have to hold ourselves accountable. The process of a worthy goal, though, is that you actually have to write a crap first draft. Like you actually have to write one that isn't quite right. And so I'm not going to encourage you to put it in the chat box, but I will encourage you to write something down and acknowledge that's going to be your crap first draft, that it's not the best one, it's not the perfect one. And then I'm just going to take you through a few steps to make it a little bit better and a little bit better. Okay, so take a moment to think about a potential, right? You don't have to marry this goal. You don't have to live with it forever. It's just a task. So the very low stakes here. I'm not going to make sure you do this, but I will encourage you to take a moment to write something down that is resonating for you in terms of a worthy goal. Okay, so take a moment to do that. Maybe a minute. Let's take a minute. Thanks, guys. In the interest of time, I will keep moving along, but I do hope that you take the opportunity to just get some of this stuff down now, because if we can invest the time into it now, it's much easier to pick up later. And so write a crap first draft. We know it's going to be crap. And so when I first did this process, and I can see Helen has a similar goal to me. Mine was to learn Te Reo Māori. Okay, so when I look at actually, yeah, when I look at how long I've been trying to be fluent in Te Reo Māori, it's decades, like decades. But I've never made it a priority. It's always been an add-on. It's always been an afterthought. It's been, oh, that'd be nice. It's been kind of sporadic. And so I thought, okay, I'll give it a go. I'll go through this process thinking, yeah, we'll see. So I did. And so the next step after your crap first draft is to measure it against thrilling, important, daunting. And so I asked myself, is this thrilling enough? You know, what it comes down to is like, I would like, so the background to this is my dad was fluent until he was 8, and he came to Auckland and it was strapped out of him. So we don't speak Māori here, we don't speak Māori here. And so as a result, that was disregarded. But not only that, like I can't really just pin it down to that. Okay, Dad didn't speak Te Reo Māori, so that's why we don't have it. My grandmother was fluent in Te Reo Kukiairani, so Cook Island Māori. And when I asked her, I must have been like 11, and I said to her, why don't you speak to us in Cook Island? Why don't you talk to us in Cook Island? And she said, I'm trying to learn English. I'm trying to learn English. So I need you to speak to me in English. And so, you know, her English was broken, and we used to tease her about it, which is, I'm mortified at the fact that I used to do that. But there's one generation there. So both my grandparents spoke both languages fluently. And it's only my parents that didn't. And so it's thrilling for me that I only have one generation to make up for. We can lose a language in 3, but I really that's thrilling for me, is that I've only got one generation to close the gap. And so that's thrilling for me. And then how important is it? So I want to be a good ancestor. I want, you know, and for me, if I look at my legacy, I want to be able to speak and gift Te Reo Māori to my grandchildren. But also it's bigger than me. Like, what will I leave in this world? What will I leave in this world and not take from it? And I will contribute, I see, to sustaining and maintaining Te Reo. And you know, how important is it? I enrolled in my first Te Reo course when I was 16. And I still, while I know a lot, I don't know enough. And so it is daunting, because since I was 16, which a few decades ago, I've been trying to learn Te Reo Māori, but it's never been the priority. It's always been the afterthought. And that's the daunting part, is that Timothy Karitu, I think he said something like, how hungry are you for it? How hungry are you for it? Like, you know, he welcomes everybody to learn Te Reo Māori for the revitalization. And he's like, if, you know, a Singaporean man wants to learn Te Reo Māori, he's hungry enough for it. Yes, there's the psychological issues of language revitalization and trauma, but how hungry am I for it? And so that's the daunting part. Am I prepared to go all in? And that, you know, how scary is it? Well, that's pretty scary, to go so far all in that I would put other things aside to prioritize it. And then how daunting is it? I've failed so many times already. I've got so many notches on my ladder in terms of false starts, we call them. How many false starts have I had? And so, you know, that is a process to get from learn more Te Reo Māori. And if you have to walk through thrilling, important, and daunting, well, then that surfaces all sorts of stuff, doesn't it? And so then he asked, once you've gone through that, we look at checking it, right? Because and checking it looks like this: throw the goal at your partner or your friend or your mum or your dad or somebody and see how it lands. Like, just throw it at them. And so I did this to my husband. I'm like, here's my goal. And just see how it lands. And then whatever you get back from them will help inform you around the thrilling part, you know, like they know you enough to know if it is going to excite you, if it's a thing, right? And then the important check it, the measure for checking it is there a bigger win? if you do this, is there a bigger win that it's contributing to? And for me, it is about revitalization, sustaining and maintaining te reo Māori. And for someone like me who's traveled the world, to be able to go, you can go to Thailand and hear them speak Thai. I mean, I was in a class with I taught a 5-year-old who had 4 languages, like 4 languages fluently. We're language poor in New Zealand. The fact that we don't have more than 1 language is we're language poor. And so it is a bigger win. It is a bigger win that we have 3 official languages in Aotearoa and most of us only speak 1. And then the Goldilocks measure is it too big? Is it too heavy? Is it too hard? Is it too easy? Is it too overwhelming? So measuring it against the Goldilocks, what we call the Goldilocks circle. Okay, so given all of that, given the thrilling, the important, the daunting, the partner win, the partner bigger win, Goldilocks, then we write the next version of the goal. And we encourage you to put an active verb. Here's a whole lot of verbs for you. It's probably giving you a bit of a, well, what is that? But we encourage you to rewrite the goal with something that encourages action, right? A verb. And so I'm going to invite you to take 1 minute to just add an action word to your current goal. And we'll move to the next part. All right, thanks everybody. So we're going to move into my next draft. And I spent many decades learning te reo, and I'll talk about this a little bit more, but learning te reo and not speaking te reo. So I moved, my verb was speak more te reo Māori, because it's in my head, it's in my heart, but I wasn't speaking it a lot. And so that was my quick change to a verb. And then we remeasure them, right? We remeasure them against the thrilling, important, daunting. And so thrilling, out of 7. So we encourage you to look at, on a scale of 1 to 7, how thrilling is this? Almost like how exciting is this for you? And for me, it's been a lifelong dream, but not one that I've given the emphasis to or focused on. And so, and that's what this is about, you know, what's the focus? What am I focusing on? And then I'm excited to understand what is being said into our Māori spaces. Like, I feel like it could be opened up to a whole new world if a new, when they, like I know some enough to, but there's some jokes that are said that I'm, you know, like those awkward moments, you know, they've said a joke and you don't know what they're laughing about, but you got to laugh anyway because then you look like an egg. So I'm excited about that. Like, that's thrilling for me. And then important is reclaiming our reo for past and future generations. So for me, it really is about being a good ancestor. I remember when I had my oldest child, there was a mama who had her baby at the same time, you know, in the maternity ward, and she was only speaking te reo to her baby. And for me, I mean, I was a young mum, And so for me, all I could think about was like, how am I going to buy this kid nappies? Like, how am I going to survive? And so I didn't prioritize that. And then we went through that option of kohanga and kura kaupapa. You know, there were so many decisions throughout my life where I could have kind of pushed it towards this desire, and I didn't. So it's important to me, and because the quote, I have to say, that really changed the trajectory of this, is when Timothy said, how hungry are you for it? Like, how hungry, what are you going to do for it? And if you're hungry to speak it and eat it every day. And then Daunting, you know, like, you know, like I'm pretty good at lots of things. I coach people. I'm an international coach. I'm a very educated person. This is my second master's degree. So I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty good. And then I'm going to go back to being a rookie to admit that I don't know lots of things and be fumbling and be learning. As much as I love learning, I really don't, the idea of going back, like really back, is daunting to me. Like, it's scary to not be at least know something about what's going on in the room. And so the question is, how committed am I? Right? And that's where we add the salt. Okay, so when we look at a worthy goal, so it's thrilling, it's important, it's daunting, and then we add the salt. So one word or phrase, what do I call the salt, to like level up your worthy goal. So let me explain. These are the elements that, or the salt that you can add to your already written worthy goal. So the first one is commitment. So this is where we kind of move into like the SMART goal kind of stuff. Like, how committed are you? Full time, 4 hours a week. How dedicated are you to this worthy goal? And then we ask, you know, the reach. So when we look at the reach, we're looking at things like on a local level, a global level, a worldwide level, 1,000 fans, 10 million subscribers, 10 likes, you know, so that's the reach. And then there's time, right? So when we look at by tomorrow, by March, within 6 weeks, we can add the salt by adding a time to your worthy goal. Then we look at the scope. So, you know, is it a one-off thing? Is it an annual thing that you want to do? Is it a franchise if you're looking at opening a business? Is it regularly, frequently, every quarter? We look at the scope. Then we look at the standard, which is your quality measure, right? Like, what is the, is it going to be extraordinary, elite, great, handmade, ethical, boutique, you know, all of the words that give us the standard of the worthy goal. And then the last one is outcome. And outcome is about sustainability, or using things like, is it viable? Is it lucrative? Is it transformative? Is it a bestseller? Is it a top 20 books? Is it, so you're looking at what is the measurement in terms of the outcome. And so I'm not encouraging you to put salt, all of these salt elements onto your worthy goal, just one. So looking at commitment, reach, time, scope, standard, outcome, which of those could you add to intensify your worthy goal? And so then we have another opportunity to write another draft. It's not your final, actually, I should take that out. It's just another draft, because even though I wrote mine back in April, I'm pretty proud of it, but it also means that these things I've learned or elements I'd like to add. So take another minute. I'll go back to this salt one. And I encourage you to add salt to your worthy goal to intensify it. Just 1 minute. Awesome. Thanks, guys. So we'll move on. It's where we write another, or your final draft of your worthy goal. And so this is where mine landed. I want to hold a conversation fully in Te Reo Māori by November 2023. So the salt I added was the time. And then the standard was, so I could learn, I've learned and spoken Te Reo Māori for decades, but it hasn't got me to where I want to be. So my standard is to hold a conversation fully in Te Reo Māori. And so a conversation, by definition, is at least 3 or 4 turns, right? So hold a conversation fully in Te Reo Māori. So I went from just learning Te Reo Māori, although that's not a just, learning Te Reo Māori to speaking Te Reo Māori by holding a conversation fully in Te Reo Māori. And what prompted me with this worthy goal process is that how committed am I to it? How scary is it? Is that I've enrolled in full immersion Te Wānanga or Takiura next year. So that's how committed I am to it. But it was this process that triggered a whole lot of stuff for me, that helped me realize that I'm that hungry for it and I can't go any further unless I fully commit to it. And so while I'm not encouraging you to do all of that, I'm highlighting the significance of a worthy goal, is that if it's thrilling, if it's important, if it's daunting, and you give yourself the permission to work through that stuff, this is where you can land. Something so profound that you are leaving the world as a better place, that you are leaving a legacy for those after you, and that you are honoring those that came before you. So the quote I shared earlier on, the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. So I had to do a lot of learning, unlearning, and relearning. And I had to be kind of honest with myself to kind of get out of my way, basically. I just had to get out of my way. And so I'll share with you in my vulnerable state, my unlearnings. So there were a few. So the first one was, I'm pretty good at, academically, I'm pretty good. Like I have a whole lot of qualifications. So I'm really good at academics. But I had to move it from my head to my heart. I had to move the task of speaking Te Reo Māori from a doing thing to a being thing. And that triggered a lot of stuff for me. And so when I changed my worthy goal to hold a conversation in Te Reo Māori, fully in Te Reo Māori by November 2023, the reason why I've put November 2023 is not an out for me, but if you want to do this in an authentic, true way, you're going to have to go and do this full immersion course. I've been on for 3 years. So I'm on the waiting list for 3 years and never committed because financially, right? So it's a huge commitment. It's like when I did the test, like throw the goal at your partner or your mom or your throat and just see how it lands. I was actually seeing how it landed in terms of, you reckon I could go study for a year and not make money? I landed all right because I'm going. So I've enrolled in Takiura, which is, one of the best language immersion classes in the country. And then I had to move from reading to speaking. So I can read Te Reo Māori, like I have a lot of books and I can read it, but I wasn't practicing saying it because I was mindful that I may not be pronouncing it right, or I may not have the intonations right. So I just stopped myself speaking it. And I'm sure there's a lot wrapped up in with the fact that my dad doesn't speak Te Reo Māori either. And so almost not wanting to outspeak him, but he is so for the journey. He's so for the worthy goal too. And then to identify, one of my unlearnings was progress doesn't look like I'm just going to get better every day. If I just work at this every day, I'm just going to get better every day. Well, no, it's been quite the mess actually. For the last few decades, I've been all up, down, turn around, drop, like it's okay to be messy, and it's okay for progress to not look like this beautiful first image, but to be a whole scrambled mess, right? It's okay for me to not incrementally get better at stuff, and to learn, unlearn, relearn, which is why that quote just is so profound for anything we want to do, any worthy goal that we want to do. Thrilling, important, daunting. Learn, unlearn, relearn. And then the whole idea of, okay, Naketa, after so many decades, your sporadic ad hoc approach to learning, speaking Te Reo Māori, isn't really working. And so everyone's like, oh, you should do full immersion. I'm like, yeah, that's nice if, you know, have the finances. Oh, that's nice if you have a year. But, you know, and it is a privilege to be able to say I'm going to study full immersion. But it's not everybody's choice. And for me, it was about moving from my sporadic, just when I feel like it, when I got provoked, to full immersion. And I'm not saying that everybody needs to go to full immersion to learn how to speak Te Reo Māori, but it is about being more intentional about how I'm going to learn it. And then my other unlearning was, it actually isn't just about the reo. It is about the tikanga. And so I remember a very, very wise man, Pomare Tawha, he said, actually, tikanga comes before the reo. And so for me, it was the realizing that I can't learn Te Reo Māori in isolation, that it's wrapped up in Te Ao Māori. And then once I switched and really embraced both, it's just been such a transformative journey for me to understand that it's not one or the other. And the reason why I saw one or the other is because at Te Wānau Aotearoa, you can do tikanga classes and te reo classes. And so in my mind, they were two separate things. I know how to go on a marae. I know how to act on, I know the kaupapa, I know all of that. And so for me, it was like embracing Te Ao Māori and not seeing the reo as different or outside of Te Ao Māori. And so the lesson, I guess, one that I've learned from my unlearning is that hope is not a strategy. And this comes directly from Michael Bungay Stanier's book. Hope is not a strategy. The fact that I hoped that I would learn Te Reo, the fact that I hoped that I would just get better by osmosis, by hanging out with some people that spoke Te Reo, yeah, that's not a strategy. And so, you know, that was my biggest learning from my unlearning. And he so eloquently put it in his book. And so I encourage you to go through the process and give yourself permission to enjoy the ups and downs. It's all part of the process, right? It's all part of the learning, unlearning, relearning. And there are a few things that I encourage you to do that he does share in his book. So if you really, he has courses, he has the book, he has all sorts of things wrapped around this whole worthy goal. I'm giving you such a small insight into the depth of this process. And I'm sharing from my perspective, right? So I encourage you to look at, when you look at your worthy goal, what are your wins already? You know, because it can be a bit overwhelming to think, oh man, I've had so many false starts already. But when I look at, you know, my worthy goal of to hold a conversation fully in Te Reo Māori by November 2023, there are things that I've done. And as I'm writing my thesis, my supervisor is there's no wasted learning, Naketa. There's no wasted learning, because, you know, and that's right after she took 3,000 words out of the document. There's no wasted learning. Almost cried. That was wasted. There's 3,000 words. Clearly, I'm not over it. But there are things that I've done, and so to pat myself on the back in terms of, yes, they're false starts, but they're not wasted learning. So I've enrolled in a couple of courses, enrolled and completed a couple of courses at Te Wānau Aotearoa, listen to podcasts. And so there's a really cool podcast that talks, it's called Back to Kura, and Taringa is another really good one, Nuku is a really good one. There's heaps, you know. Never has there been an easier time prior to colonization. Never has there been an easier time in this to learn Te Reo Māori. There's just so much available to us. And so reading books, like I have lots of Te Reo books. And I have adopted that 30 minutes a day Māori at home stuff sometimes, not that great at doing that every day. My biggest one though is enrolling. Well, actually, I've been on the waiting list for 3 years, but enrolling for reals, like signing the form, taking it, like that's my biggest one. Tuning into Te Reo Māori, and already I can see, now that I put a focus on it, already I can see myself leveling up, and being honest with myself about my limitations, about what I'm good at, but also my limitations. And one thing that holds us back though is the consequences. So what are the consequences? What are the negative and positive? And to call myself out on those things. And so, for example, the negative consequences of me being fluent in Te Reo Māori is that I'll always be called on for everything Māori, right? So at the moment I have it out because I don't speak fluent Te Reo Māori. But that actually is a negative consequence of me learning Te Reo, is that I'll be called on to do everything for everybody Māori. And that doesn't feel good. Like, so that's something that when I talk about negative consequences, actually just call them out. Give yourself permission to think about what are the prizes of this, and what are the punishments of this. And a punishment, for want of a better phrase, is that I'll have to be the Māori expert. The other one is huge commitment financially. Not only is the course expensive, but that's a whole year of me not working full-time. Who will I talk to? Because none of my friends speak to them. Like, you know, like this is I love hanging out with my friends, but none of them are full fluent Te Reo Māori speakers. So I'm gonna have to make some new friends. And these are my friends I've had since high school. My relationship with my whānau as well, because you know, that just puts another layer. I'm already the leader / bossy boots in the family. So the fact that I might be fluent in Te Reo adds another element to my bossiness, maybe. So these are all perceived negative consequences, right? And then how can I sustain it, right? You can go do the course, and at what cost will this taonga of being able to speak Te Reo, what cost will that come to me for my life? Like the cost, as in how much time will I have to keep leveling up? How much wānanga kura reo will I need to attend? And it's not just next year, it's a lifelong commitment, right? And so the cost in terms of time and financially. But there are positives. And this is why we have to go through the thrilling, important, daunting to kind of get that out there. It's like how someone has to start this process for the generational loss of Te Reo Māori. How lucky am I that it can be me, right? How lucky am I that I had the choice to take a year off work to go learn Te Reo Māori? How cool will it be to call it a Māori to my grandchildren? So full disclosure, Helen will know this, but I'm Cook Island Māori, my husband's Niuean. So now that I'm on this, see, this has ripple effect, right? Now that I'm on this journey, we're all going to Niue, right? That's never been, we have a house in Rarotonga which we go to, but now Niue is in the, I'm like, that's cool. That's a cool ripple benefit. He already speaks Niuean fluently though. So, and then role model out and influence out, right? Those are the positive consequences. And then you ask yourself, what's at risk if you don't? Well, there's, what I haven't shared is that identity piece, right? The identity piece, not only for my children, but for my grandchildren. And I keep talking about my grandchildren. I don't have any grandchildren, even though I've asked for years. they're not even alive. But I'm trying to be a good ancestor here, because my kids, you know, I feel like I've always dreamed of being the nana that kind of like homeschools, does cool stuff. I imagine us flying to our home in the Cook Islands, our home here, and me just being a full-on hands-on, not overbearing, but full-on hands-on grandparent. And so what's at risk if I don't, that they don't have a choice to stand in confidence in terms of their identity as being Māori. And then what might get in the way of you achieving your goal? And I know what will get in the way is that I lose focus. I know what will get in the way is that I'm not prioritizing. And so I keep the quote from Timothy Carter keeps playing is like, how hungry are you for it? And it's the same thing, how committed. But for me, that was triggering, the how hungry are you for it? That really was the bit that I'm holding on to. And then who will hold you accountable? Okay, so it doesn't have to be somebody, but there's some joy. So I have a coach for my thesis that should be done by the middle of next month, but she holds me accountable to me. So she holds me accountable to the goals that I set for myself, and she calls me out because I'm very good at talking. She calls me out when I don't do what I say I'm going to do, in the nicest possible way, but still she calls me out. And so I have a coach that holds me accountable to my thesis. So I need somebody to hold me accountable to my next worthy goal. And then what will it mean to achieve this goal? And that really is that heart stuff, right? How cool will it be? What's the legacy you're leaving? And then finally, one thing I will bring to this korero around is that we can actually achieve any worthy goal with focused attention and incremental shifts. Anything. If you just if you want it that bad, if it's thrilling, if it's important, if it's daunting, you can achieve stuff with focused attention and incremental shifts. We sometimes have false starts because the task is so mammoth. The goal is so big. And so by going through this process, you land at something that you can live with, but that you can help use to guide you. So that's me for today. Thank you to everybody who stayed on. I saw through the chat that there was a number of people that left, but I want to acknowledge you and give my biggest aroha and awhi to you as you design your own worthy goals for yourself. Kia ora.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Big hearts to you. That was amazing. Look at all my notes. Honestly.
Very good. Very good.
I've been scribbling like crazy throughout that. That was so good. So inspirational. Oh, I feel full up with amazing ideas and thoughts, and yeah, I'm revved up. Thank you. That was really great. Yeah, I sort of feel a bit speechless, which Mel will attest to does not usually happen at the end of a webinar. Usually I've got 101 questions, but now I just feel kind of filled with great ideas and inspiration. So thank you. And I really loved your tangled knot of progress. That's the image that's really going to stay with me, because I've been feeling a bit like a tangled knot recently and beating myself up about it, but now I'm like, oh, that's okay, that's just how it is when you're learning something new. So yeah, that was really awesome. Sure. Thank you. Yeah, so I think we're right on the end of time, so we don't have time for questions, but I know that just looking at the comments quickly that people have really taken a lot from that, so thank you very much for sharing. Yeah, so Mel, I think we have to let people know about what's coming up next. So please join us for the next webinar on Thursday, the 27th of October, usual time, 3:30 to 4:30, where we're going to be hearing about the results of some research by Liz and Carol from Massey University. They've been looking at Aotearoa New Zealand History's curriculum, and they've been doing some research with school teachers and students to gauge their views on the curriculum. So that ties in very well with some other webinars that we've been doing all about the history's curriculum. So it'll be adding to our kite of understanding in that area. So I hope you can make it for that, and we will be recording it if you can't make the live event. Okay, so let's close. Unuhia, unuhia, unuhia ki te uru tapu nui, kia wātia, kia mama, te nākau, te tinana, te wairua i te ara takatā. Koia rā e rongo, whakaira, ake ki runga, kia tina, tina, hui e, tai ki e. Thank you, everybody. Mā te wā.